If I asked you to do one simple thing right now, stand up and try to walk in a straight line while counting backwards from 20, would you be able to do it without stumbling over your words or your feet? It sounds like such a small thing, almost silly, even. But here's what most people don't know. The way your body handles that simple task might be quietly telling you something about your brain health, years, sometimes even decades, before any memory problems show up. Doctors have a name for this. It's called a dual task test, and researchers have been quietly studying it for years, watching how it can flag changes in the brain long before someone ever forgets where they left their keys. Maybe you've noticed a parent who used to talk easily while walking and now goes quiet the moment they step off the curb. Maybe it's you and you've caught yourself pausing mid-sentence just to cross the kitchen safely. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to stay with me for the next few minutes. Because today, I'm going to walk you through this exact test, the same one being studied in memory clinics right now, how it works, what it's actually measuring, and what your results might be quietly telling you. And a little later, I'll share something that surprises almost everyone I talk to. This test isn't just about spotting risk. There's a specific, everyday habit tied to how well you perform on it, one most people have never even heard of. So if you've ever laid awake wondering whether those little slips are just normal aging or something more, let's talk about why this really matters, and not in some abstract, someday down the road kind of way. Your brain is doing something remarkable every single moment, something we almost never stop to appreciate. When you walk and talk at the same time, when you cross a parking lot while checking for cars and thinking about your grocery list, your brain is juggling multiple jobs at once. It's coordinating your muscles, balancing your body, processing what your eyes see, and forming your words, all in the same breath. Before we continue, if you're new here, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sara Michelle, and I break down health and nutrition science so you can make informed decisions about your own well-being, covering everything from heart health and diabetes to brain health and longevity. If that sounds useful to you, hit subscribe and join the community. Let's move to our topic. For most of your life, that juggling act happens so smoothly you never even notice it's happening. It's automatic, effortless. You don't think about walking. You just walk. But here's where most people make a mistake. They assume that if something changes about that automatic ability, it must just be getting older. A little wobblier, a little slower. Nothing to think twice about. And sometimes, that's true. Bodies do change with age, and that alone isn't cause for alarm. But researchers who study brain aging have found something worth paying attention to. When the brain's networks responsible for memory and thinking start to change, even in very early, subtle ways, long before someone would ever fail a memory quiz, one of the very first places that shows up is in exactly this kind of divided attention. The brain has to work harder to do two things at once. And when it's working harder in the background, something in the foreground often gives a little. Usually, that something is the walking. This is exactly why researchers developed simple tests like the one I mentioned, because they don't require a hospital, a scan, or an appointment. They just require watching what happens when the brain is asked to do two ordinary things at the same time. Think about your own routine for a moment. Do you find yourself stopping on the stairs to finish a thought? Going quiet when you're navigating a crowded store? Slowing your steps when someone asks you a question mid-walk? If you recognized yourself in any of that, don't panic and definitely don't diagnose yourself. That's not what this is about. What it is about is understanding your brain a little better, so you know what's worth paying attention to and what's simply part of being human. Because here's the surprising part, the part almost nobody tells you. This kind of everyday slip isn't just a red flag to worry about. It's also something you can actually train. And that changes everything about how we should be thinking about it. Let's get into exactly how. So let's get specific, because your brain works harder when multitasking is easy to say, but understanding what's really going on underneath makes all of this so much more useful. Here's something most people never learn. Walking is not actually as automatic as it feels. It only feels automatic because your brain has practiced it since before you can remember. Underneath that smooth, effortless motion, there's a constant flow of signals from your inner ear, your eyes, the muscles in your legs, and a part of your brain that's essentially running a live balance calculation, moment to moment, adjusting for every uneven sidewalk crack and every gust of wind. Now add in a conversation, or counting backwards, or even just thinking through what you need at the pharmacy. Suddenly, that same brain has to split its attention between "don't fall down" and form a coherent sentence. For a younger brain, this split usually happens without a hitch, because there's plenty of processing capacity to go around. But this is where the common misunderstanding comes in. Many people assume memory decline shows up first as memory decline, forgetting names, misplacing objects, repeating a question. And sometimes it does start that way. But researchers have found that changes in this kind of divided attention, the walking and talking ability, can actually show up before those more obvious memory symptoms do. Sometimes years before. Let me give you a picture of what this looks like in real life. Imagine a woman named Carol, 68, sharp as a tack, still does the crossword every morning. Her daughter starts to notice that during their weekly walk through the neighborhood, Carol has gone quieter. Not sad, not withdrawn, just quiet. When her daughter asks her something while they're walking, Carol will often stop walking completely to answer, then start again. Carol herself hadn't noticed it at all. To her, it just felt easier to focus on one thing at a time now. That's not necessarily something alarming, but it's exactly the kind of subtle shift researchers are learning to pay attention to because it reflects the brain quietly reallocating its limited resources. Here's what surprised even the researchers studying this. The test isn't just useful for spotting early risk. It turns out that regularly challenging your brain with these dual-task situations on purpose, in a low-stakes way, appears to actually support and strengthen those same neural networks. In other words, this isn't only a warning system. It's also a kind of exercise equipment for the brain, hiding in plain sight in your everyday walk. And that raises the obvious question, the one I get asked more than almost any other. If this connection is real, what can you actually do about it? Not vague advice like stay active or eat healthy. I mean specific, doable, starting today kind of steps. That's exactly where we're headed next. Alright, let's get practical, because information without action doesn't help anybody, and I promised you real steps, not vague advice. The first thing I want you to try is actually the test itself, done safely. Find a hallway or open space in your home, free of clutter, maybe with a wall nearby just in case you want the extra reassurance of something to hold on to. Walk at your normal, comfortable pace, and while you're walking, count backwards from 100 by 7s, 100, 93, 86, and so on. Notice what happens. Do you slow down? Do you stop walking to think? Do you lose count instead? There's no passing or failing here. This is simply about building awareness of your own baseline so that if things ever change, you're in a much better position to notice. Now here's where most people get the solution wrong. They assume the fix is to just avoid doing two things at once: simplify life, slow down, take away the multitasking. And I understand the instinct. But that's actually backwards. Remember, this ability works like a muscle. Avoiding the challenge doesn't protect it, it lets it get weaker. So instead, the goal is gentle, regular practice, the same way you'd rehab a knee, not by never using it again, but by using it in smart, controlled ways. Here are a few habits that researchers and cognitive specialists have pointed to as genuinely useful, not just trendy. Try what's sometimes called cognitive walking. On your regular walk around the block, through the grocery store, down the driveway to get the mail, intentionally add a light mental task. Name items in a category as you walk, like fruits or US states. Do simple math in your head. The point isn't difficulty, it's the combination of moving and thinking at the same time. Pay attention to your footwear and your walking surface, too. This sounds unrelated, but it isn't. When your feet feel unstable, your brain redirects extra attention just to keep you upright, leaving less available for everything else. A supportive, well-fitting shoe isn't just about comfort. It's about freeing up your brain to do other things while you walk. Social walking matters more than people realize. A walk with a neighbor, a spouse, or a friend from church naturally creates that dual-task situation, moving your body while holding a real conversation without it ever feeling like an exercise or a test. It's one of the most natural, enjoyable ways to keep those brain networks engaged. And here's a detail almost nobody mentions. Sleep quality directly affects how well your brain handles these divided attention tasks. A poor night's sleep doesn't just make you tired, it measurably slows down exactly the kind of dual processing we've been talking about. So if you've been putting off dealing with restless nights, this is one more reason that's worth addressing. The common mistake I see again and again is people treating this like an all-or-nothing verdict, as if one wobble on a walk means something is seriously wrong. It doesn't. This is about patterns over time, not single moments. One-off day proves nothing. But noticing a pattern and responding to it with these kinds of habits, that's where the real value is. Now, let's bring this all together, because there's one more piece of this puzzle that changes how you should think about everything we've covered so far. So here's the piece I saved for last, because I think it's the most important thing you'll take away from this video. This test, walking while counting, walking while talking, was never meant to hand you a verdict. It's not a diagnosis, and it never will be, no matter how many times you try it at home. What it actually is a mirror. A simple, honest way of checking in with yourself. The same way you'd check your blood pressure or step on a scale, not to panic over one number, but to notice trends and to catch small changes early, while there's still so much you can do about them. And that's really the heart of everything we've talked about today. Your brain isn't a fixed thing, slowly running out the clock. It's dynamic. It responds to how you use it, right up into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. The variability that this test measures, that graceful juggling act of moving and thinking together, is also something you can actively support, simply by living a little more intentionally. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Don't wait for a big, obvious warning sign before you start paying attention to your brain health. The whispers matter too. The quiet pause on the stairs. The conversation that goes silent during a walk. These aren't things to fear, they're invitations to notice and to act. Try the test this week, gently and safely. Start one small habit, a daily cognitive walk, a call with an old friend while you take your evening stroll, a commitment to finally deal with that restless sleep. Small, consistent choices like these are exactly what the research points to as meaningful over months and years. You've already done something valuable today just by staying with me this whole way through, because that curiosity, that willingness to learn about your own brain, is itself a sign of a mind that's engaged and working exactly the way it should. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.